Today I am talking about Monstrous Regiment by Terry Pratchett, book 31 in the Discworld by Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett, back in the Discworld again. I read this years ago, and I'm re-listening to them under the new audiobook versions, and they're so brilliant. And this one again is no exception. When young Polly Perks decides to save her brother from the war and go look after him, she's always sort of been more mother than younger sister. She cuts off her hair, enlists in the army, and finds a pair of his old trousers, and that's the easy part. But learning how to fart and belch in public and walk like an ape is a little bit of the tricky part. And yeah, so it's typical Terry Pratchett quirkiness, brilliant jokes. She enlists with Sergeant Jackram, who's an old Bologravian legend, basically. He's been recruiting troops for all of his lifetime, and he has mastered the art of sergeanting, which is, the sergeants are the ones that really secretly run the world, run the military, run the police, and the higher ups are the sort of knobs. That you just you have to manage them. Sergeants know the art of managing the knobs and the high brass. The Ruperts, as Terry calls them in the book. You gotta watch out for the Ruperts. There's a lot of quirky little jokes in it. Fill your boots with soup, and then you get to sort of the crux of the story. So there is enlisted this group of Borogravia is one of those odd countries that it's always at war with someone. They've gotten the god Nuggin, whose everything is an abomination, and everything is an abomination. It's just bizarre, this bizarre religion, which Terry always has a lot of fun poking a stick at religion. And this one he certainly has a real crack at. And yeah, so they're signed up, and because they've been fed the line, a bunch of raw recruits, which includes a vampire and a troll, and they're going for all different reasons, going to fight this war. They're heading to the front, and Sergeant Jackran's leading the way. But there's no more recruiting now. This is it. This is done. This is the last group. But we've been told all these years that we're on the side of right. We're the mighty, and we're winning the war. But as they head off, they find deserters. They find people limping back. Oh, and there's an eagle too. Sorry, I forgot the eagle. So the eagle's helping mend people, and so Polly has to learn the art of becoming a man and a boy and a soldier all in the one, which secret of sock stuffing is a funny one. And then just the attitude of men and the little bit simplicity of us men. It gets a lot of ribbing and a lot of poking, and this is a bit of a spoiler alert, but the whole regiment, except possibly Maledict, the vampire, is they're all girls. They're all girls for different reasons. Polly's chasing her brother. Another one's pregnant and trying to find her sweetheart. And another two are just any way to be away from where they are. There's that sort of element that escapism and why you would do it and why you would run into certain things, and that sort of Terry touches on there. Then there's the jokes and that. These girls dressed as boys, pretending to be soldiers or enlisted as soldiers, have to dress up as girls, and that happens a bit, and just watch the fun and the mayhem in a typical Terry Pratchett form as they navigate this the enemy. I can't even think of what the enemy was called. I just bloody finished listening to it. But yeah, of course, there's also Sam Vimes is watching because Ankh-Morpork can't stick their nose. Can't function without sticking their nose in everything, which is very reminiscent of our world and our politics, and certain countries like to have a say in everyone else's business. And so he's got Angler on the case watching them, and a couple other members of the squad. And also William the Word makes an appearance. Him and Otto, his vampire photographer, and him and Melodic are both black ribboners, so they don't suck blood. But poor Melodic, so you've got to, if you're a vampire and you to replace the craving of blood, you have to, you can substitute the food and the sustenance, but you have to replace the craving and the desire. So for Otto, it's light and the perfect photographs, even though they do collapse him because he's a vampire and turn him to ash. But a drop of blood and he's back together, and which we learnt in The Truth. But in Monstrous Regiment, poor Melodic's addicted to coffee, which creates a little bit more of a thing, because when you go to war, supply lines and that become an issue, so there's no coffee. So that's an interesting little subplot. And watching them, navigate, so their own people don't sort of know what to do with them, because everything is a defying the god Nuggan, and so their own people don't want them. The enemy, these are enemies, so they've made them look foolish. So there's a lot of quirkiness, a lot of twists, and a lot of turns. And sort of the only person that sort of is on their side is, Sam Vimes, despite himself, or not despite himself, but despite sort of a typical Ankh-Morpork stance. And William de Word, who's after a good story, which I can relate to a little bit. But also that creating the news and that. And yeah, watching them get into enemy lines on this brilliant mission, Monstrous Regiment. The twists and turns at the end are fantastic. It's typical Terry Pratchett. The moral that you find in these stories is always brilliant, and without ever, you're not like, it's, I always talk about his messaging and the subplots and stuff, but it's really not done in a way that you feel you're being spoken down to. You're still in the story and that, but any conscious thinker, which most readers are, like, that's, you can't not pick up symbolism and messaging. That's part of why we love to get into a book. Actually heard a Trevor Noah quote about it, that if it's a true story, I'm paraphrasing, it's a true story that you sort of question, well, did they really say that, or did they really do that? So you never sort of know, like, to believe in the message or whatever they're trying to tell in a non-fiction. But in fiction, you've created this world where you can understand it, and so it's easier to believe that this is what's happening in a non-fiction than in a fiction as opposed to a non-fiction. And I think that's what I love about Terry Pratchett. These well thought out, that really, they question your thoughts and your ideas, and that's why we should read. We should always be examining our thoughts, but in the most brilliant, quirky, fun way of brilliant storytelling. And he really, is a master of that. Terry Pratchett, Monstrous Regiment, book 31 in the Discworld. Another fantastic read. Happy reading, subscribe and follow for more. Opa, opa, opa.